All right, let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm Dion Polite. I'm the Director of State Operations at AARP Florida. Today, we celebrate National Coming Out Day. According to the Human Rights Campaign, in 1987, 33 years ago, the second National March on Washington for Lesbian and Gay Rights was held. A year later, in 1988, we first observed National Coming Out Day to commemorate the March on Washington. This is a reminder that one of our most basic tools is the power of coming out. Coming out as LGBTQ plus still matters. When people know someone who is LGBTQ plus, they are far more likely to support equality under the law. Beyond that, our stories can be powerful to each other and for each other. Today, we look at what we can learn from the LGBTQ plus community about creativity and connecting generations. We have a full lineup, including a panel discussion and an interactive collage making exercise. So to kick things off, I'm going to have a fireside chat with Beau McCall and Souleo. Beau McCall is a creative artist and recently released his book. It's artist book rather, and it's called Rewind: Memories on Repeat. It's a tribute to his 10 dearly departed friends in the LGBTQ plus community. And joining him this afternoon will be Souleo, who is editor of the book, curator, and co-organizer of today's event. Hello, 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 my loves. So nice to see you
Hello.
both.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for being here. So for Beau and Souleo, in commemoration of National Coming Out Day, what was your coming out experience within the LGBTQ plus community?
I had to think about that. I don't really think I had an official coming out day, but then after I thought about it, the only person I really had a conversation and coming out with was my best friend at the time. And I remember we were sitting in her car and we were going God knows wherever. And I said to her, I have something to tell you. I broke down, I cried, and I fell all out. And she was like, looking at me like, what is wrong? What is the matter? So I said, I'm gay. She was like, is that all? Let's go. So from that point, I knew that I was going to be okay because growing up with my family, we have a lot of males in my family, and I never got any different or preferential treatment. Mm-hmm. I was just one of the boys. So I think that was a plus for me. And I had an advantage on a lot of friends and a lot of stories that I've heard over the years as far as coming out and dealing with your family.
Mm-hmm. For me, it was not a linear process. It was a coming out and then a going back into the closet and then a coming out again. So what happened
That's interesting.
Yeah, so growing up as a child, I was, an effeminate male. And so that was I was chastised for that growing up as a child at times. And when I mentioned it to my mom, she didn't realize that that's what she was doing, was stifling me with that sort of conditioning. And so that kept me just hidden in a way from fully expressing myself. Then when I got into junior high school, I came out. I was like, I'm ready. I'm a rebel. I was 13 years old. Let's go. Taking off the elementary school uniform. I'm me. And then I got bullied in school. Mm-hmm. And that made me go back into the closet because I wasn't ready for that sort of societal reaction. And then when I went to college, I came back out. I was like, you know what? I'm ready. And that was, from there on, I've been out everywhere, but it was gradual. I came out like you did, to a friend, then to family, then to the entire family. So yeah, a gradual process.
Wow. It's all a part of the experience. But tell me, how did those experiences influence your approach to creativity and the development of the book?
The book is really about relationships. And I think when I first came out and I acknowledged the fact that this is how I was going to live my life, and I started meeting people like myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a chosen family, and we all had something in common. So when it came time to the book, it's ultimately about relationships, whether it's romantic or platonic. Relationships is about how people make you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said before, after I've lost them and a few more, I have not developed any gay relationships as far as friends, platonic friendships.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's about trust. I haven't met another group of people or another individual to make me feel the way they made me feel.
I understand that.
I wanted to highlight and dedicate them in this book, because I had dozens and dozens and dozens and thousands of pictures. And one of my friends used to always say to me, "You're picture crazy. Why are you a host taking pictures? You're picture crazy. You're picture crazy." So in the end, it paid off because I had a lot of ammunition to complete this book.
I love it. And Beau, tell me, so how have you used your creativity, because you're an artist, right? So how have you used it to address the loss of your friends who you pay tribute to in the book? So the photos are there. How else have you used your creativity?
Well, actually, with the photos, I had a photo album. It started out as a photo album, right? And over the years, I would constantly revisit the book every time I would lose somebody, and I went through a state of depression because every time I would call home, this person died, that person died. And then when it finally got to my circle of friends, it was almost mentally I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And the photographs, the photo album, it sort of kept me at bay. It kept me strength. It gave me strength. Then when I got the opportunity to do a book, it strengthened me more. Then one week, my friend Tracy, the day before we actually put the book in progress, she died.
Oh, goodness.
And then we always have this conversation. Who's going to be the last one to tell the story? And I'm the last one.
Oh, my goodness.
So I'm telling the story now. I'm sharing my story.
Wow, that's really beautiful. So I can't wait to get through this book. So the book, though, focuses on your friendships in the 80s and in the 90s.
Yes.
Since then, how have you been able to navigate the challenges of loneliness and social isolation that can stem from the loss of loved ones?
Well, I'm a Pisces, so isolation is good for me because I'm able to create within those spaces. Because I can remember coming up as a kid, I was very wishy-washy as far as being moody. And my mom used to just tell my siblings or whoever was in our circle, leave them alone. Because I remember when I first moved into my first apartment with my roommates, which they're in the book, sometimes I didn't want to be a part of the process of what was going on. I just needed some me time. So I would go in the room and lock the door. And they would call my mom and say, Beau won't come out the room. And my mother would be like, just leave him alone, give him a couple hours. He'll be out, he'll be back. So for me, it's all about creating, because maybe one other person that's in this group had the same level of creativity that I had and understood creativity. The rest of them, they were always like nagging me, like, why are you making this? Why are you doing this? We can be going to the club, or we can be doing this, that, and the other. And I always say within art, people don't really care about the process. They care about the finished product.
Yeah.
So when they see the finished product, it was like, oh, that's what you were doing. Can you make me one?
Yeah.
So ultimately, it made me focus harder in my creativity.
And I think that's beautiful. I like I said, I can't wait to get to the book. But there's something that's been going on the last couple of years, the COVID pandemic, right? So does the pandemic remind you of the early days of the HIV/AIDS pandemic?
Kind of, sort of. The difference is the pandemic, it affects everybody.
Yeah.
When the AIDS virus first came on the scene, we only thought it was just gay men.
Mm-hmm.
And then for a while, the Black gays thought we were immune to it, that it wasn't going to happen to us.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can remember going out to clubs, and it will be all these whispers in the atmosphere: AIDS, 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 AIDS. And the pandemic is kind of different because you're in quarantine, you're in lockdown. You know what I'm saying? You didn't get a chance to interact with people.
Mm-hmm.
Then when the AIDS came in full effect, you was able to identify it when you saw people. This time around, you're in quarantine. You don't see anybody. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it came a point where we would see different people, their skin would get darker, their hair would get fine. You would see the process of them breaking down. Mm-hmm. So it was scary because you didn't know how close it was going to get to you or the people you were surrounded by. Mm. So it's a few parallels, but to me, it's a total different thing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think there are some parallels, but it's totally different. There are people walking around, coughing and sneezing and doing all that they're doing, and it's different. So this is a question for both of you. You're both life partners and have worked closely together on this book. The two of you are also of different generations, a baby boomer and a millennial.
That's me, the millennial. Don't play.
I was going to ask, but thank you for telling me. Make it clear. How'd you form and sustain your intergenerational relationship?
Well, I'm a lot older than he is, and
wiser too, I would imagine. No, I'm only kidding.
I'm sort of set in my ways, and it reminds me of when, as a kid, when I would talk to my mother, and I would always say, "Well, Mom, back in your day," my mother would get mad. She was like, "Back in what day are you talking about?" So, to a certain degree, I'm very contemporary. I very much want to be in real time, but then I find myself, I'm sort of locked in the period in which I came out. So he comes in and we have discussions, and he kind of brings me up to date on why this is conducive for us or why this would benefit me. Otherwise, I would be in a cave somewhere.
I think it's creativity that bonded us together. I've always been into creativity, whether it's writing or such. And then Beau introduced me to the visual art world. And ever since then, I've been into visual art and into fashion in ways that I wasn't prior to that. And so in working together, we found a common passion, and we found that we can collaborate together with that common passion, and it just reinforces the relationship. Because I remember when we first met, I came here and Beau had tons of, his wearable art in the closet. And I was like, this is amazing. Why isn't it out there? What are you doing with this? And he was just keeping it to himself. I'm like, oh, no. Like, we gotta do something with this. And I didn't realize that in doing that, it would help to sustain our relationship. It just keeps us closer together.
And I think it's beautiful. I encountered the two of you, maybe 10 years ago, and I fell in love then, and I'm still in love now. So.
And then he's the best muse on the planet. Sometimes he can be difficult, but he's my muse.
It keeps the relationship fresh too,
Yeah, I bet.
New adventure, always something cool, exciting to work on together as well.
Yeah, and let me say this before we end. People always want to know how we got together, this, that, and the other. And I tell people that I waited for him half of my life, and he finally showed up.
My God, how beautiful is that? That is beautiful. So that you said that. What are some of the valuable lessons you've both learned from each other coming from different generations? What are some key nuggets?
I think for me, being a millennial and hearing Beau's stories about his life, there is a wisdom that's there. There is a survival and a thriving. He's lived through a lot, civil rights and HIV/AIDS epidemic. So knowing that he's gone through those things and he has come out of it still a whole person, still a beautiful person, still warm and still looking good, no wrinkles. Like it
I
just
know.
right? It just lets me know that as a millennial, like all that I'm living through and experiencing through these challenging, difficult times, that I can still come out of it on the other end a whole person. And it just inspires me. And it helps to also put things into perspective. For me, I was very much like, oh, I gotta do this now. And he slowed me down in a way where it's not about seeking that outside validation, it's valuing yourself first. And so those are some of the nuggets I've gained from him.
Well, for me, he keeps me in real time. A lot of times stuff will fly past me because again, I like my space, I'm insecure losing, and he have to like pluck me and like, this is going on right now. We have to be a part of this and you have to be knowledgeable about what's going on. So he keeps me abreast with everything current. And then with this technology, you know, I'm old school and I'm and he's like this. So it's sort of like that.
It's the yin and the yang. It's a beautiful thing when they come together. Beautiful.
Yeah, but we have a great balance.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think it's wonderful. It's wonderful to witness, and I just feel honored to be a part of it. So just let me say that. We have some questions, but I want to finish this part before we get to the audience. I have two more questions for you. How are you both preparing for life as you age together? You know, I'm at AARP. I got to ask that question.
Of course. So, you know, during the pandemic is when we really started focusing on that question because that was the moment where I think everyone realized, wow, life is really like here today, gone tomorrow. Like, and so, you know, we began the process during the shutdown of creating our wills, our powers of attorney, and our healthcare proxies and our beneficiaries. So we've begun that process and we're near the end of that process. Because for me, you know, we've had the conversation about marriage. We've been together, going on 12 years. It's not something either of us is like gung-ho about, but we want to make sure that we have the same rights and the same access to each other in case of any emergency and that we can still care for each other whenever or if one of us, you know, is no longer here for the other. So yeah, we had to think about that and get started on that process.
It's basically what Souleo said. We're in motion. We're still signing off on documents and we're still, you know, getting things together as far as our families and, you know, possessions and all those type of things.
Absolutely.
And the other piece of that is that, you know, for me, being that I'm younger, you know, there's a 28-year age gap, just to put into perspective. So it's not only about, okay, me being here for Beau, but God forbid, who's going to be there for me when I get his age and older. So so we both have to think about not only can we be there for each other, but be there for ourselves in the event, you know, one of us is not here. So I'm glad that we started that process. And I encourage everyone to do that. And it's also made us document our creative process. So we're in the process of creating our archives and having that donated to institutions so that that lives on as well.
Right, so we're leaving our legacy behind.
Yeah, it's so key, right? You have to tell a story. You have to tell a story. That's how others are enriched, enlightened, empowered. You have to tell the story, and yours is a beautiful one. And I love it that you all both are preparing to care, and that's, you know, that's what this is all about. That's what caregiving is all about. Aging. You know, it doesn't have to be something that just comes at you. If you prepare yourself, you're ready for it whenever that happens. My last question for the both of you is, what difference would the Equality Act have in your lives in a place like New York?
So, you know, we spoke about this before we got the question. It would provide a sigh of relief. And by sigh of relief, I mean that, you know, it's always great when you have protections under the law. But that doesn't mean that you stop being vigilant, because as we see, there is always a counter campaign to take away our freedoms. And so you always have to be vigilant, but it would definitely give us greater leverage for the next fight. It would give us some peace of mind to know that we are protected, not only in New York City, but in the other 29 states where they don't have similar protections under the law. So this would make it federal so that, let's say we wanted to move to another part of the country, Midwest, never, but you know, just saying.
So we would have to investigate the laws wherever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we would know that we would be protected wherever we move to in the US, and that our friends who are LGBT plus are also protected across the nation. So I think it's really important to have that.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you too. Again, that's a part of planning and preparing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to get to some of the questions. I'm going to go back and forth. You'll see my head moving.
Okay.
I'm in it, but I want to make sure I get some of the questions. So one question I'm going to start with is, have you faced any conflicts of interest when you work on a project together? You know, with the whole age thing and all of that.
Yes. Yes, because it's a collaborative effort. And sometimes we're not on the same page, and then we have to compromise, and we have to really sit down and map it out and talk about all the details in what we're trying to say and how we're trying to communicate. And it's not smooth sailing all the time. Sometimes we get ideas and we can just run with it. But then other times it's like, you know, we got to do research. We got to pick each other's brain to move forward.
And I think what keeps it balanced is that we respect each other's lanes and spaces. Like, I know he is the creative one, like when it comes to the visual and the wearable, and he knows I'm great with the administrative side. So at the end of the day, I'm going to trust in his final decision if he feels strongly about something where I may be on the fence. So it's about that trust and that balance as well.
And then also, you have to acknowledge your strengths.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
Yeah.
Weaknesses. Who got weaknesses?
Well,
I have
challenge areas. Challenge areas.
Yeah. So I have a question for you, and it relates back to something Beau said earlier in our conversation about being a Pisces and having the need to isolate. How do y'all deal with that? Do you still have that need, and what does that look like?
Well, he's a Leo, so he's a ball of fire 24/7, okay? and he requires a lot of attention. I give it to him until I need to be in my own space. And then when I'm in my own space, we've been together for so long, body language would say, you know, it's trying to bring it down a couple notches.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, you must be hungry because you're being really nasty. So, I mean, like in the beginning, because when we got together, I was 23. And so, you know, this was like my first very serious relationship. And so I didn't know what a relationship looked like day to day. I was like, I expected fireworks every day. I'm like, where's the baths out? Where's the roses every day? And, you know, after a while, he was like, this is the calm down period. We're together, we're in this. And so as I started getting older and speaking to others and learning, I was like, oh yeah, we're good. Mm-hmm. We don't have to have that every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
right.
And I also need my space too. So I have my friends and I hang out with them, and, you know, we make sure we give each other that space.
Right. And then when you're in relationships, keep your friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Keep your friends. Very, a lot of people alienate their friends. And then when stuff doesn't go your way, you have nobody to lend the ear to, you know.
Yeah, that's really important. And sometimes your friends don't have to really be a part of your village, right? Because it enhances the experience, you know, when you have different people around you.
Right.
I'm looking at one of the notes that says, Leo, stand up. And
see what I'm saying?
It's actually from my sister who's a Leo. So there's that. And Beau, just so you know, I'm an Aquarian, so
okay.
I get you. Yeah, I get you. I absolutely get you.
I would stand up if I had pants on, right?
So what, you know, if there is a nugget, a golden nugget that for the people that are listening to us right now, what could that nugget be from each one of you? And I want it to be from the boomers' perspective as well as from the millennials' perspective on how do we, you know, we're going to have a new normal now, you know, whatever that looks like. How do we transition into that new normal as a part of community, right? As a part of the LGBTQ plus community? How do we transition to our new normals? Because what's going to happen? How are we going to, I know in New York has been pretty good with, you know, shutdowns and adhering to, you know, restrictions and the like, but there are other places that have not. What's it going to look like for you guys?
All I can say is one day at a time, because right now we don't know what's happening from one day to the next. You just have to be prepared. You have to be alert and be conscious of your surroundings.
And for me, it's about staying vigilant and staying creative. So stay vigilant, stay up with the news. Don't try not to let it overwhelm you and depress you, but find ways that you can take action just within your own space, So for us as creatives, it's about using our creativity to create exhibitions and programming such as this that helps to inspire and educate and unite people. And that's a value in a time like this as well. And so I think we have to find where your strength is and apply that to the movement and to what needs to happen and what needs to change.
I agree with you. I agree. Tell me this, Souleo, what's the best part about the book for you?
The best part is that his friends, their stories live on, because I never got to meet any of his friends because they passed before I even knew Beau. But they live on through this book. I feel like I know them, and I feel like we're helping to continue documenting the Black LGBTQ experience. So often, as people of color, we're left out of the narratives, the mainstream narratives. And this book helps to show that we exist, we have valuable stories and valuable contributions. And so I'm glad to see that he's been able to do this tribute for his friends.
Yeah, I think it's such a beautiful way to love. And it's such a beautiful way to show how to love, right? Yes. To celebrate the lives of those that really impacted you, that are no longer here. Yeah, but you can tell their stories. It's like planting seeds and watching them grow.
Yeah, every time I look at the collages, I know exactly what we were, where we were, what we were doing. It's so vivid. It just comes right back to me. It kind of saddens me that they're not here to share this with me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the book will live on and they will live on.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. So you've taken on a responsibility, and it's a beautiful one. And I'm going to say personally, I'm really proud of you. I'm really proud of both of you. You're a great example of what love looks like. And when people put limitations or labels, they do themselves a great disservice. So thank you so much. I think it's probably around the time for us to transition over to the panelists. And I am going to do that. And there are other questions. There are lots of questions that people are asking. So I'll intermittently come back and ask some questions and the like. But at this time, I'd like to invite our panelists to discuss some of the research and policy initiatives surrounding today's topic. So I'm going to introduce each one of the panelists, and I'll start with one of my colleagues, Dr. Julie Bates, and I call her Dr. J. Right now, she's the interim senior advisor in the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Julie strongly believes that as staff and as an organization, AARP is uniquely positioned to be a positive voice for LGBTQ Americans that are 50 plus. She's been actively engaged in leadership of the PRISM Surge, which is AARP's LGBTQ plus employee resource group, for many years, and feels that AARP has the opportunity to shape both internal and external policy by being a strong voice in the association. Thank you, Dr. J.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, thank you for being here. Then we have Souleo Cruz. Souleo holds a master's in health administration with a concentration in gerontology from the University of Phoenix and a BA in psychology from Hunter College. Currently, she directs SAGE Center Harlem, NORC. SAGE is the country's oldest organization dedicated to improving the lives of LGBTQ plus older people. As site director, Souleo creates safe spaces and forums for all older adults to center their experiences and live their best lives. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here, Souleo. And last, but certainly not least, is Scott Keone Shinge-oka. Did I say it okay, Scott?
Okay, that was good, yeah.
Lord. And Scott is the creative in residence at Encore, where they provide creative consultation for a national effort to bridge a generational divide. They're also the host and executive producer of Business Curious, which is a podcast that's focused on LGBTQ and plus entrepreneurs, which the Advocate called one of the best LGBTQ plus podcasts to listen to now. I am really, really honored to have you all here with me to engage in this conversation. And I'm going to start by asking each one of you a question. And the first one is this. In each of your areas of work, how have you found we can use creativity to help address life's challenges? I'll start with you, Dr. J.
Well, thank you. And, like Souleo, I'm a gerontologist. I hold a PhD in gerontology, and my research is all around LGBTQ aging and resilience. And, I think LGBTQ older adults are uniquely positioned to be creative because we've had to be creative our whole lives, right? We've had to figure out how to be able to walk through the heteronormative culture to get to the other side alive, right? To be able to navigate our families, to navigate our communities, to navigate our workforce, to navigate politics, and to navigate anything, right? We've had to figure out how the heck are we going to get there? Not just in one piece, but strong and thriving towards the other side. And so I really do think, LGBTQ people 50 plus can be a beacon of hope and creativity for others, right? To look at, okay, they face discrimination all of their lives. Ageism is discrimination towards individuals based on their age. Now, ageism can happen whether you're young and you're old. Anytime you have that thought of you can't do that because of your age is ageism. And so when we as LGBTQ people get to be older adults, we're pretty much over all that. We've been proving ourselves to be, fabulous and worthy all along. So when we get to be older adults, it's like, who gives a rip, right? So what? I'm 55 years old and I'm going to live another 50 years. So get ready. I got a lot to do. And so I'm not sure if that really answers your question necessarily, but I really do think that creativity is a key component, a core value of LGBTQ people because of our lived experience.
I thought that was a great response. Thank you very much, Dr. J. Souleo, I'm going to go to you.
That was an amazing response, and I think that's absolutely true. Some of what I do in my work is know that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are things that folks have been doing for ages, and they really just need a space and a forum to continue that work. So many of our participants are incredible artists, incredible orators. Like we've done performances. They've Souleo, who I used to work with at one point, has curated some amazing exhibits with their work. So they definitely are showing us a lot of lessons. And I want to be very forward to say, as a heterosexual woman, my participants have actually inspired me and given me the courage to do many things as a single parent that I wouldn't have never managed to do. And before starting this work is when I, felt inspired to go and continue and finish my degree with their support. You have this, you can do anything. But it's about knowing that they have already been doing this work and how can we foster that and bring that to light so that more people can share these lessons.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Scott?
Yeah, I want to just, I'm so grateful to be on this conversation. I think we've been in this collective moment together where 714,000 people in our country alone, at least, have died because of COVID-19. And so we're in this moment of shared grief, and many of them were our elders. And there's a sudden, loss of, transmission of love and of wisdom and of connection. And it's been 20 months, and it's been lots of anxiety, lots of isolation. So I've been thinking a lot about in my work, how do we move forward from this, the shared experience? How do we heal, And whether it's COVID, whether it's the spiritual harm, we might have gone through, whether it's the climate crisis, isolation, othering, like we all have been hurt in some way. And so how do we actually heal through that? And I think creativity actually plays a really important role. I'm right now in Texas and I'm teaching a class on this, on creativity for healing. And I think that, we can be creative in so many ways. By the way, it's not just art, although art is a beautiful way of doing it. It's movement, it's collaging, it's writing. My mom's on this call. She does like photo albuming, there's
Yes,
my
mom, rock star.
sister loves to, knit. It's like making beer. It's like picking wildflowers and doing bouquets and gardening. Like those are all creative practices. And the studies have shown that when you do these creative practices, you actually heal. You lower your stress and anxiety, you cope with grief and loss in a more meaningful way. You can connect with others. So I invite everyone on this call who's listening in to think about what is that creative practice that you have or want to bring back or want to start in your life so that you can begin to heal.
I have a follow-up question for you, Scott. The class that you're teaching, is it in person or is it a virtual class?
Yeah, it's actually, well, we were virtual and now it's in person on the UT campus. Yeah, so which has been, an experience to navigate and to work through that. But it's been beautiful to just be in space with people again.
Absolutely, absolutely. It sounds awesome. If I were in Texas, I'd be in your class, just so you know. My other question for the three of you, and I have a couple, so it's just so I have a couple. What are the most creative solutions to the epidemic of loneliness and social isolation among older and younger adults? What do you guys think? What are the most creative solutions to the epidemic? And it is really an epidemic.
Loneliness and social isolation was a problem before the pandemic that just got exacerbated because of the pandemic. You had everyone stopping and coming home, whatever home might be. Those of us were blessed to be able to work from home, but we were isolated from everyone. And suddenly there's this shared experience of being lonely and this understanding of, even though I used to go out to work and come home from work, maybe I was lonely even then because I've been here all along and I don't have, all of the different structures that I might like to have in place to help me feel connected to others. And we like to blame, social media for the rise in social isolation. And yes, there can be a part in that, but the internet can also bring us together. We have the ability to connect with each other through these things when used properly, whether it's Facebook or Zoom meetings or whatever. But because of the pandemic, there were new programs that came out to specifically address this issue. And one that I'm really proud about, is AARP. I want to make sure I get the right name of it because I always just called it the Friendly Visitor Program. And I knew that wasn't it because that was from my Wayback Machine. But it's the AARP Friendly Voice Program. It's done in English or Spanish, depending on your verbal preference. And I wish I could say it was in 52 other languages. It's not. But what it is it connects two people together to make a commitment to talk to each other by phone or video conference on a regular basis. And it helps, I saw in the chat, some of the ways that maybe intergenerational connection. This is a great way. You can volunteer to be someone to reach out to an older person who said, I'd like to connect. And again, the PhD in my mind goes, and I know that AARP, we believe in research. I would love to see how these relationships continue after the pandemic is over. I would assume that there will be strong connections that were built through the use of this particular platform, both same generation or intergenerationally, that continue when we might still be able to be together in person. And the other thing that it gives us is you can have close, meaningful relationships with someone who's not next door, right? We've learned that we can do that because of the pandemic and technology, that we can be in deep community with each other wherever we are, and how wonderful that is, right? I don't have to get in my car or get in a plane to be with people who I have chosen as my family or who are my family.
I love that, Dr. J. That was so good. Thank you. Souleo?
Hi, so I just turned off my video because I'm hoping that'll help with the sound.
Thank you.
So can you hear me better now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So for, I think also besides using technology, also connecting with other organizations that are doing work with a younger population. So we have done some incredible work with the Studio Museum and connecting their youth groups with our seniors who also do a lot of artwork and having them work on projects together. Also, like you mentioned, technology is a wonderful vehicle for connecting folks as long as, you know, we use it the right way.
Mhm.
So there's many opportunities, even with the pandemic, where some of our folks needed assistance in learning how to use and navigate certain tablets and things like that, so they can keep connected to programs. So that was also a great opportunity for younger folks to help out our participants. So there's many with music also is a great connector. Many of our most memorable event was before the pandemic. Obviously, we had an event here on site where a youth group from the Studio Museum came and we did like a summer playlist. And
Cool.
some of the stories of them, of their coming out stories, of the teen stories, just from playing music. And at the end of the event, they were all dancing to, you know, music from the summers when they were in high school versus some of the songs from now. The
Oh my
participants were doing the
goodness.
Dougie with the youth group. So it's about finding things that they're already doing that builds them together, not necessarily always making it a thing of service. I think sometimes younger folks get to like, oh, that the seniors need help or the older adults need help or let me, but they actually want you to interact with the things that you're doing as well, because it's things that they like to do. They want to dance, they want to party, they want to do some artwork. There's different things like that, and not making it a thing of service or making them feel less than.
Mm-hmm. Souleo, that's absolutely on point. I'll tell you, I'm 60 and I can dance with the rest of them. Okay. So, and you know, I'm hooked on TikTok and I see the dances they do. And then I try practicing it and I call my kids and I say, look what I can do. And they're like, what are you doing? But it does it. It's, you know, it just refreshes. It also keeps them on point to know that mommy might be 60, but you know, she still done got a little something.
Mama still got it.
Got a little
Yeah.
something, you know? Scott, what do you have to say about
I mean,
that?
I was just gonna say like some of my favorite people to party with are, you know, folks that are like one or two generations, you know,
Hello.
older than me.
We
I
know
mean,
how to do it right.
my mom's about to turn 70 this month, shout out. And you
Yeah.
know, she did like belly dancing on Zoom. I was like, all right, mom, okay, go,
Love
dude.
it.
But yeah, no, I think so much of this, right, is about like the assumptions that we hold, you know, across generations sometimes. And I like to always like flip them on their head and be like, well, actually elders have this deep well of energy, you know, and they want to do things and they want to learn and they want to contribute. And young people have this deep well of wisdom actually. And they've learned and they've so much to give us and can help us, you know, be guided out of these issues that we're all, you know, facing. And I think at the heart of that is this kind of challenging cultural, you know, narrative, you know, of like,
Mm,
okay, boomer and like entitled millennials, and we're kind of like being pit against each other, even though we should be coming together, you know? And
so
so
true.
I think, you know, how do we move from like this hateful rhetoric, which is by the way, like fueled by the harm and the hurt people are feeling of like not feeling understood, not feeling
Hmm.
valued, not feeling like, you know, they're being seen or
Hmm.
honored.
Hmm.
So, you know, I like to think about some of the most creative people I know that are doing this kind of work. Encore.org has this incredible program, the Gen to Gen Innovation Fellows. And there's like dozens of these leaders that are just doing all kinds of incredible work in their own communities across the country. I mean, they're like using art, for instance, fabric art and visual art and music and dance to bring generations together. They're doing like these co-learning spaces around history. They're doing dialogue sessions. They're living together, like co-living environments. I mean, just so many examples. And I'll drop a link actually in the chat so folks can
Great.
just, you know, see who these incredible and
Hmm.
inspiring people are. And I welcome you all to participate, get involved, and donate. They all need our support too. And so, yeah, that's one place that I go for inspiration.
I love that so much. You know, I was saying actually to some friends the other day. I think you know we've sort of become overwhelmed with the last 2 years of being like what we think shut down, but it really, if you stop and pause, it has allowed us to realign ourselves and redirect and pivot and all of those different things to do something different, to do something better, to sort of reimagine what things could be like. And maybe, we see this as a curse, this pandemic, but maybe there's some gifts in it as well, right? Because, your mom belly dances at 70. Listen, I need to meet her because I need to. My son is getting married next year, and I keep on threatening them that I'm going to come with a belly dance outfit to the reception and just start like shaking my bacon. But we'll see how that goes. And on another note, AARP has a commercial that's been out, and it's about celebrating the intergenerational connection, right? I don't know if you've all have seen the commercial. Shows an older woman walking on a younger person, going alongside of them. And that's what it's about. It's about us understanding that we can be connected. That age is just a number. It doesn't define how we're going to show up, right? So thank you for that. My next question is this. In an AARP survey, it was reported that 76% of people worry about having adequate family or social support systems to rely on. How can forging intergenerational connections help address the concerns about social support systems? What do you guys think?
Well, of course, I always like to talk about caregiving, right? And that in our culture, in our country, in our world, we are always at one point or another either fixing to get ready to be a caregiver or to be a care receiver. And and in the LGBTQ community, particularly in our older generations, there aren't as many children necessarily to act in that role. But even in the heteronormative culture, we're seeing less and less children in families. And so this whole conversation about families of choice and how we build families together, and it kind of links back to the last question about, intergenerational relationships. It's important for us to remember that people are people and friends can happen at any age. And so I don't want to say to people, build friendships with younger people so they can be your caregiver. Build friendships with younger people and with older people because they're really great people. But also recognize that as you're building a relationship, when someone needs you, you're there.
Yeah.
So that when you need, they too are there. And this is a concept that was maybe a little more prevalent in times gone by, right? We take care of our family, we take care of our neighbors and things of that nature. But I think particularly because of the pandemic, those kind of light bulbs are coming on for people. Gee, I didn't know my neighbor before the pandemic because I was so desperate to make friends. We had, happy hour outside, social distance, and I finally met my neighbors, right? And gee, I've got some pretty great neighbors, and I want to build that relationship so that we can be together in community. So the caveat to this question is make friends of multiple generations because you like them, not necessarily because you want to 20 years down the road go, Jay, I'm getting a hip replacement. Could you drive me? Or could you care for me at home?
Yeah.
But if that happens and you are either needing to provide care to your loved ones, because we do know that most of us are children of somebody, right? And as LGBTQ people, we have a higher percentage of time where we become the caregiver to our parents and other family members because we don't tend to have children in the home, and particularly if you're the oldest child, oldest daughter, the dutiful daughter. We do have a wonderful resource at AARP. It's called the Prepare to Care Guide. There is one specifically done in partnership with SAGE for the LGBTQ community. There's also ones for the unique issues in the Hispanic Latino, the African American Black, the Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese, many of the Asian culture issues that we can use to help us be prepared for the time when either we need to be a caregiver or a care receiver.
Thank you, Dr. J. And I see that the link for the Prepare to Care guide has been posted. So thank you so much for doing that. Souleo? I'm going to skip Souleo and I'm going to go to Scott. And
I think
Scott,
Souleo just unmuted, so
oh, he
I don't.
did. Yippee. It's
Okay,
almost like
I'll jump in. Okay, I'll jump in. I was thinking about this, and I think the mutual aid efforts that have kind of popped up in the COVID-19 response has been really beautiful. Obviously, like that's been around for a while. I think about like the Black Panthers and the Free Breakfast Program, which served like tens of thousands of fed tens of thousands of people, and the Puerto Rican Young Lords who like were delivering tuberculosis testing, and then this philosophy of mutual aid, like not hoarding but instead sharing resources and like meeting your community where y'all are at, has been really beautiful to witness, to see how people were just like self-organizing and doing like grocery store pickups. And there was like the Twin Cities Queer and Trans Mutual Aid Group. There was, Washington State Project to support those who are undocumented, sex workers who were organizing to raise emergency funds. I was walking around Oakland and there was like these fridges that were set up, with food. I mean, it's just like these beautiful mutual aid efforts, neighbor to neighbor, community to community, really centering on solidarity, not charity, as like a beautiful way of stepping into this pandemic. And that's what I'm super excited about, is like more of those kinds of intergenerational actions that are about like how do we redistribute wealth, how do we make sure we're taking care of each other, and that requires us to be connected to one another, right? To know who actually is proximate to us, to know who needs support and what kind of support they need, right? So
yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard
I'm
tell.
gonna try to chime in.
Oh, sorry, Souleo. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I've heard of experiences in Florida of people, which is where I am now. I'm a transplant from New York. People standing on their front porches and talking to the next one and saying, "You doing okay today? What you gonna do today? I have some vegetables. I'm going to put it on the porch for you." And I mean, and I know that's not only happening in Florida. I know it's happening in different places around the country. Actually, I would venture out to say around the world. And that's what it's, because it's going to take all of us, not some of us. And
or even like children drawing the rainbows and putting it on their windows. I don't know if y'all have that down there, but that was so beautiful. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Those, I mean, those are all the things that matter, right? And those are, like I said before, the pandemic is the pandemic, but it's caused us to pause and pay attention to certain things, things that we may have brushed aside previously, but now we know that even the little things matter, right? Because we connect to it. Souleo, and then after Souleo finishes, Dr. J, somebody wanted to know a little bit more about what virtual connections look like, intergenerational virtual connections. So I'll just add on for you to think of it. Souleo, thank you so much. We're ready for you.
I just absolutely want to piggyback off what Scott said. Solidarity, not charity,
Yes.
is what's really, really important. And that also speaks to sustainability. I think a lot of times when we figure out and communities figure out ways to solve their issues themselves and how to be there and sustain the community, then when things like this happen, they're not as traumatic because you have your village.
Mm-hmm. I think probably.
Sorry, I don't know why this is lagging, but
that's the thing we've discovered about technology, right? It is not our friend. It is not our friend. But you know what? We pivot, right? So that's the other thing. It's I think for many of us, we've learned the balance of dancing and moving and still keeping it going,
Right.
So Dr. J, do you have a response for that question I told you?
Yes, I think I do. And I mean, and to technology is a wonderful thing until it's not. But you couldn't pay me to go back to the time before, right? When we didn't have these things, of course, I remember, my first cell phone that was as big as my pocketbook, and my hair was the only thing that was bigger at the time. And when a fax was the fastest thing ever, right? And so we do learn and we evolve and we learn how to utilize technology to our best advantage. And so when I talk about having meaningful connection via technology, I think there's no magic wand that I can say, okay, Scott and I are going to be best friends today because we met on Zoom. You know, friendship and relationships take time, energy, and intentionality. Right? And so if we are willing to bring ourselves open to friendship making in the virtual space, we will be able to develop friendships in the virtual space. Now, I'm not saying say yes to every person who asks to be your friend on Facebook. That's not what I'm talking about. But you know, many of us have passions. It could be politics, it could be plants, it could be art, it could be knitting, it could be whatever it is that turns us on inside. And because of the wonders of technology, I can guarantee you, no matter what it is, there's a group. And not only is there a group, there's probably 10 to 200 groups who also have the same passion as you. So you can use that platform of Facebook to find others who get excited about the same things that you do. Maybe it's, you know, you really like a television show. I mean, we can go to something even that, you know, simple that might connect us with someone else. And then you put yourself out there. You do, in fact, put your thoughts, you put your passionate feelings about things, and look to see who responds, and look to see if they respond again. And if you get into a give and take conversation that feels good to you, then you can pivot and you can say, hey, we're friends in this group. Would you want to be friends with me on the regular Facebook page, you know? And let's get to know each other maybe more deeply through our average everyday Facebook communication. Or I see that you like knitting and I like knitting and we're both in Stockton, California. Do you want to get together and knit? We can go to the Barnes and Noble and have knitting time there. You want to join me? And so we have the way to use this technology to open the doors to communication, to open the doors to friendship. That doesn't mean that everyone you meet is going to become a BFF. It doesn't, you know, and I am a firm believer that you can have as strong relationships with these people you've never met before as you can with your neighbor or the person that you're meeting for the first time at a group in person. So just be open. Of course, I feel obligated to say, protect yourself. You know, I don't want you to get, you know, sucked into a sweetheart scam. You know, if trust your gut, if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And close that door and move, but don't be afraid to open another one. I hope that answers the question.
That was really good. And I'll just add to it. If Richard Gere reaches out and says, hey, I love to knit, would you like to knit with me? I might be tempted. I really might be tempted, but I'll take your advice and be cautious. And yeah, I don't want to get caught up in a sweetheart scheme for sure. Yeah. Scott, I have to tell you that in talking with you all and looking at the chat, there are so many people that are madly in love with you now. So you know, there's that. I don't know if there's something that you want to add to what Dr. J said about, again, our interactions and the value and the gift of that.
I think like so much of what I just appreciate is like understanding the history that came before us, you know, and I think like, especially as like a Japanese American who learned about like the internment of Japanese American people who were like othered and silenced and, you know, kind of forced to assimilate, especially on the West. We lost our property, we were like spit on, you know, like all these horrible things happened. And then I think about like people like Fred Korematsu, who like stood up, you know, to these like Roosevelt's executive order and became a fugitive and like organized. And I feel like, you know, I'm following in those footsteps as like a creative, Beautiful. As a queer person, as a Japanese American. Like I need to also come out. I need to come out in solidarity. I need to come out to, you know, be in service of others, to uphold the dignity of others. And so, yeah, I'm just finding ways to continue to do that. And I think so much of that is by, you know, like we've been saying, like walking alongside of each other. And yeah, then we can hopefully get to a world that's, you know, where we, like as Jean Powell says, move from othering to belonging, right?
Oh, goodness gracious. I love that. Yeah, that's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. Thank you for that share, Scott. Souleo, I hope I can ask you this question. And it is, what are the limitations of data and how can we address the challenges with grassroots support and initiatives? What do you think?
I think that a lot of times there is a mistrust there for folks in our communities to trust and give and participate in surveys. Sometimes these things don't come with an immediate reward or any benefit for folks when we do take part in certain surveys or things like that. So I think there needs to be more direct connection with grassroots organizations and to actually build something that's sustainable and long lasting, right? So it's not that, we're doing this while this grant is here and now, everything goes back to the way it was. But what are you building that you can actually leave behind that the community will continue to use or can grow themselves if there isn't a funding or there isn't? How do you empower folks to continue the work in their own communities? So I think that's maybe a first step, and actually bringing resources directly and programs that, especially for health interventions, where folks are. That's sort of the foundation of any community, and grassroots is meet people where they are. Why do folks have to go to a service provider somewhere else to participate in a survey or in research? Why not come directly to their community and do the work there?
I love that. Do you have examples of that, Souleo, that SAGE is engaged with?
Well, currently, I know we're working with our own participants as we worked before with AARP on various research initiatives, but also seeing how we've all talked about how communities are already sustaining each other, and what are our participants doing, and how do we sort of solidify the work that they're doing in taking care of each other. Participants are already folks that know, like, someone hasn't come to the center, so there's in a few days, let me give them a call. How do we, so then that sort of builds into a program within our site where folks check in on folks from time to time, folks that no longer can come to the center, and sort of have a visiting program, but it's mostly peer-led. So it's not, a younger person. It's just someone that they already know in their community, and they're more likely to respond to. So that's something that we're working on and trying to grow within the larger SAGE community, but that we're doing here in Harlem.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. J, you look like you want to add to the.
Of course, I desperately need to add, and of course, our colleague, Dr. Corte, comes to mind. No data, no justice, right? If we do not collect data, we will never be able to make the case for why we need to have research for LGBTQ people. Why do we need to have funding specifically for LGBTQ senior housing? Why do we, right? We have to have data. That's why it's so important that the questions are asked on, minor surveys like the census, right? Or every survey should have a way for us to be identified in a meaningful and culturally appropriate way. Who are you? How do you identify? Who are you committed to? These are questions that need to be universally asked on every single solitary survey we have, right? In a perfect world, we will get to that sooner than later. And I'm proud of AARP, because we are the largest researcher of the 50 plus. And it's taken us a long time to get to the point where in every survey, we have the opportunity for people to tell us who they are, right? And to collect that data. And, I hate to say, as recently as 6 months ago, I went to a doctor's appointment and the only thing it gave me was who my husband was.
Huh?
Yeah, who, you put your name and who you're, and it's like, no. And of course I cross it out and I talk about, I'm married to, and her name is, right? So these are things that we constantly have to be reminding people that it's easy to put your form. Don't give a sex option, just say, who's your significant other? And so these are all the different ways that we can collect data that can be then utilized to, again, make the case, whatever the case may be, whether it's more funding for Scott's program, right? We have this many people, they're coming and they did this, and you can show it because of the data, right? But if we don't ask the questions, then people can say, well, there's not any old people, there's not any old gay people.
And I guess I would just add by saying, like data comes in like so many different colors and ways, right? It's not just quantitative and numbers. It's also like the lived experience that people have and the stories that we have to share and the place and the cultural understandings that we have. And that's really important for us to hold and to share. And that sometimes, that data is more embodied and it's harder to, for organizations or, community leaders and members to kind of like put quantitative forms to it. So how do we also, the systems that are supporting all of us and our society, how do we also welcome in other forms of wisdom, of information, of data?
Because qualitative data is just as valid as quantitative data. It takes more time and it takes more skill to be able to interview and ask questions for people to ask in a narrative or story way, but it is just as important and it is just as scientifically sound.
A friend of AARP, Dr. Imani Woody, I'm looking at the comment. She says, love qualitative data, harder to put into quantitative format. Yeah, very, very true. And then she writes, Dr. Julie, from your mouth to academia. So there's that, we're dropping nuggets.
Well, and Dr. Imani Woody is my shero, so I'm just thrilled that she's on our call today.
I'm glad that she's on the call as well. So I'm gonna ask each one of you to give us a nugget as we transition into the next portion of what we're doing on this interaction. So I'll start with you, Dr. J, and then Souleo, and then Scott. What do you want your passing shot, or what? It's a basketball term, and I don't play basketball, so I don't know it. But the winning shot. I think that's what it is, right? Is that? Somebody help me. I don't know.
I don't play basketball. I don't do sports. I don't know anything.
I dance and I do art. That's it. So go ahead, Dr. J. What's that winning shot?
I guess my closing shot would be that, again, to be open to the possibilities of friendships and relationships, no matter the person's age, ethnicity, socioeconomic group. Be open, because we can learn and we can grow and we can share our own lived experiences with those that we choose to allow into our space and that we choose to seek. So always be seekers, seekers for new ways to engage, new ways to practice creativity. Everyone is creative, even if you aren't Beau or Scott. Everyone is creative. So don't ever buy the whole thing that I don't have a creative bone in your body, because you do.
I love it. Thank you. Souleo?
I guess I would close with that, saying that finding value in every experience, like everyone's lived experience has something to offer and take away with, even if you don't necessarily see it right away. It's incredible what you can walk away with when you actually listen to folks.
Thank you so much. I love that. And Scott?
Yeah, I would just say like the work starts here. Like we practice self-love, practice self-compassion. I like to say, embrace your inner fungi or mushroom, because they're nature's decomposers. They can take toxicity from the soil and transform it into nutrients that like serve the entire forest ecosystem. And I like to say we can do the same thing. We can transform our trauma, what is toxic, what has harmed us, into something that serves us, whether that's courage or resiliency or, all the things that we've been talking about. So, start with self-love, embrace your inner fungi, and then go out and spread that.
Yeah. Love that. Embrace my inner fungi. So before we transition, there's been a request that all of the panelists share their social. So whether that's Twitter or Facebook or TikTok or whatever it is. And I think, yes. Okay, so Dr. J has shared hers, and I think the others will be shared as well. Thank you so much to the three of you for making this interaction so super dope. So super dope. I know, Scott, you didn't expect that from a 60, right? But you know.
Hey, I'm like welcoming it though.
Thank you so much. So the next portion is around collage making. And I'm going to tell you what you're going to need. Hopefully you all will stick around for this portion. This is where you will connect to the inner artist. So we're going to tell you a couple of things. Grab a blank sheet of paper to use as your base. Grab whatever additional pieces of paper you have available that you can use to cut up into pieces for the collage. Grab some glue or some tape. Lay out all of your materials. Begin cutting your pieces of paper. And I don't think I'm talking fast because I know it's also in the chat. So I'm just going through it. Don't overthink it. Just let your mind go free. Once you have a few pieces of paper cut, begin arranging them on the page. Place them anywhere as you continue adding more pieces. You can rearrange them as you see fit. Try not to think about the end result. Just enjoy the experience of moving the pieces around and letting the work reveal itself to you. Think about what it was like to be a child and just play with whatever was around. This will be your imagination running free. Now, after you feel as though you've had enough on the paper and you'd like the layout, you can glue and tape them down. Remember, you can always change it later, but for just now, just go with the flow. Once all is glued or taped down, sit with the work for a while, connect to it before you decide if it needs to change or not. Most importantly, reflect on how the process made you feel. Do you find a sense of fun and freedom in the process? Were you able to relax and let go? Do you feel rejuvenated or inspired? And tapping into our creativity allows us to free ourselves from all of our life's constraints and to imagine better futures. Imagine what lies ahead. So I think for those people that are going through this process and are proud of their work, even if you're not proud of your work, somebody else might be, you have a couple of minutes before we
Dion,
yes.
I'm ready on my end.
Oh, you're ready on your, okay. So what we'll do is that we'll ask you to raise your hand from the button, the hand button, if you want to show your speed collage on camera.
Okay, so I'm going to start my collage.
Yes, let's see.
I have a jump on you guys. So what I do is, for those of you who don't know are not familiar with my artwork, I'm a button artist, and primarily all of my work is done in buttons, the actual button. And in the last year or so, I've been doing button collages.
Oh, wow.
And I take snapshots of my finished work for references for future works. And I use that in the collages. Like this piece right here. A lady asked me to do a button bra for her. So this is the close-up of her bra. Wow. And this section right here is what the inside of the buttons look like after I sew them down on the back end. Right. And this little yellow piece right here, I did a piece a few years ago called World Spinning on the 45. And it was actually, for those of us that remember seniors, 45s, we know what 45s and the yellow record disc that went inside the 45.
That's right.
So I made one that was like 60 by 60.
Oh my goodness.
With all yellow buttons. And in the visual art, the buttons reflect what I'm saying in the piece. So in that particular piece, I had musical notes, I had peace signs, anti-war signs.
Love it.
Anything that had to do with bringing people together through music. So it was a great piece. You would have to see it. No, so this I found yesterday. It's a cuff of a man's shirt. So this is where you get creative in bringing the collage to life. So I saw the cuff. I like the cuff. So I got a little space right here. So I'm gonna take these little tiny buttons right here, and I'm gonna close that little white space up
Oh,
right there, right? And then I have me and my lover right here.
yes.
And I
Oh,
slide this
wow.
down into the sleeve. And there's your collage.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
There we go.
Thank you so much for, wow, that's pretty dope.
Now, it's not it's that simple at times, because as you're going, you're still creating. Like when I saw this a few minutes ago, this little cuff link right here, I'm going to change to a button cuff link. So it's the work is still in progress until you actually permanently glue it down.
Yeah.
So you have time to remix it and change different spots in different areas. And then color has a lot to do with it. Like, okay, I'm dark, so I need some lighter shades to pull me up within the piece.
I love
and
it.
it's really fun, and it's relaxing. You know,
I bet, yeah.
Get your old magazine or old book and just start cutting pictures out that appeal to you, and then you get your pieces and you start putting your stories together.
Mm-hmm.
And as you go along, it could change from minute to minute. It could change, but when you get to the final piece, your eyes will tell you whether it's complete or not.
I love it. That's beautiful. I wonder if there are any others that may have followed along with us and want to share. I don't see any hands up.
And then this was only 6 pieces. So you really don't need like a whole mass of all these different clippings. Size has a lot to do with the space that you're using. So on your initial piece of construction paper, I try to work within that space, and then piece them within the space. And then
you place them all, and then you tape them up, or you secure them. So you don't finalize it until you're feeling good about what you put together.
Until I feel like this speaks to me. Like this, I really like this. So
I like it too.
This may turn into something permanent.
Yes, I love it.
Except for this, I want to change that.
Yeah, well, you got to make it yours, so there's that.
Yeah, put my signature on it.
That's right.
And then in making it, you find different things, and you can come up with your own signature. It doesn't have to be a button. It's something that relates to you in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Back in the day, mine used to be shoes. I was, as you'll remember, I love.
So yeah, because we both love shoes.
Yes. You and I both have that love for shoes. But since the shutdown, dude, I've been like rocking sneakers, and I'm working with those too. So
same thing, because there was a point in my life where I never wore sneakers.
Oh wow, that was me too.
And it wasn't until recently, until maybe the last 15, 20 years, where the sneaker culture changed and it's a larger variety.
Yes.
Before it wasn't like that. It was, Converse, Pro-Keds, Skippies.
Right. That's what we had in our day. Yeah. Now it's like,
so now,
fabulous.
when you're shopping for sneakers, it's like shopping for shoes.
So true.
Yeah.
So they even have some wedges now too. So
yes.
Sorry, Dion and Beau. This is Duncan. I just want to butt in for a second. Hi, all behind the scenes here. We've got at least one person raising their hand.
Oh, wonderful.
Julie, I'm just going to let you know I'm promoting you to a panelist right now. So if you have the ability to turn on your video, you can show off your collage. And anyone else who wants to show off, just put your hand up using the hand raise function in Zoom.
Thank you, Duncan. Julie, where are you? Let's see your great masterpiece.
Come on, Julie.
We're waiting with bated breath.
Don't be shy.
This is family now. This is safe space.
Yes.
I mean, Beau showed us buttons from somebody's bra, so.
Did she get lost?
She probably, I don't know, maybe she's, what do you think, Duncan?
Yeah, if you know, we can wait for Julia. Julie, they might not have the ability to turn on photos. I'll turn my video on, sorry, so that I'm not being a mystery. Hey, everybody. Again, if anyone
We can
else.
go to the next person if there's someone else.
Are there others that
Absolutely.
have
I don't
made?
see anyone else with their hands raised. I got about a quarter of the way through a little collage here.
Listen,
It says
Duncan.
more to know at the top, which I thought was kind of fun.
I like the colors,
You're not
Duncan.
running with that, okay?
I like the colors and the shapes. Those are really nice. This has been really such a wonderful, wonderful afternoon, a wonderful way to spend an afternoon. And I think what I'll do now is, oh, look at this gorgeousness that just came and just like added this boom to the part of the program where we are right now. I'm going to ask.
Let me just say one thing.
Yes, Beau, please.
When you asked me earlier, do we compromise and how do we work on certain things? So last night I did this collage, right? So I finished the collage and I showed it to Souleo. And he was like, I like it, but I think you should feature somebody in your book. And I said, no, I'm not.
I wanted one of his friends to be featured in the collage because it ties to the book. But I said, it was late at night. It was like around midnight. And he had that look on his face. It was like, don't ask me one more thing. I said, okay.
I know all about that.
I thought this was pretty good.
I think it's pretty good too. Yeah.
I love it. Do we have like 2 minutes for any questions from the audience? If anyone has any additional questions before we go to Dr. Nicordelli?
I know I didn't see any additional questions. Lots of love though, lots of love, lots of people admiring the relationship and the beauty of the two of you and also the panelists. Lots of people just really sending light your way. And I do the same, Souleo and I met at the Schomburg really about 10 years ago. I had on a pair of boots that I'd gotten at Bloomingdale's years ago with a gold medal behind it. I don't know if you remember that. Do you remember that, Souleo? And you walked past me and said, "Oh, girl, I love your boots." I fell in love. I turned around and I said, "Oh, I will follow you anywhere. Who are you? Wait." And it began a beautiful, I think of him as one of my mentees now. And Beau, you've become, a member of my circle as well. And this was just so wonderful. Since I've been here 6 years, I've been trying to get you guys to come to Florida just to do something. Come to South Florida, please. Miami is waiting. Okay, because every time I talk to you, I talk about it. Miami's waiting, and I'm waiting. So let's make it happen.
Someone just texted me a collage. They're probably too shy to come on camera. I'm gonna show it. Can I show it, Peter?
Sure. I wonder how we can do that.
Well, it's on my phone. Can you see my phone?
Oh my goodness, that's a pretty fancy one. That's with family members?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
Yeah, so
no.
Someone just did a collage. So people are making collages, they're just shy.
Yeah. It's for some artists, they prefer just to keep their things close, but that's okay. Maybe today will be the day that they decide to just step out.
Yeah, it would inspire them to do
yes.
More.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
So thank you again to the two of you. You were amazingly awesome. I just cannot say enough. What a wonderful way for us to celebrate National Coming Out Day. Just wonderful. I'm going to ask my colleague, Dr. Nicordelli, to bless us with closing remarks. Let me also say about him, this is another one that's in my circle. I call him King because he's deserving of that title. I love him to pieces. I met him at a social function. Somebody had been telling me about him before I met him. And then when I met him, and he was with his partner, and I was nice to him. And then I looked and I said, I know you from somewhere. Don't you know me? And it was the most hysterical thing. I don't know if Nicordelli will ever talk about it, but it was me thinking I was bigger than I was. So, sometimes you just need to be humble, and they were so gracious to me, and I just love them both. And Dr. Nicordelli, I turn it over to you. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for being a part of this process.
Thank you, Dion. Thank you, Dion. Thank you to our partners over at Encore. Thank you to SAGE of Harlem. Thank you to Souleo and Beau for being so generous about sharing their story of love and partnership and creativity. Thank you to the other panelists, Suli and Scott, as well as our colleague, Dr. Julie Bates. The conversation has been fantastic from beginning to end. I really, it was almost a tearful moment when Beau and Souleo, sort of talked about their partnership, and hearing Beau say, "I waited for him my life, my half of my life, and he finally showed up." It was a moment that definitely pulled at the heartstrings. And thank you for sharing all the wonderful things that you all been doing throughout the pandemic. Really just fortifying your relationship, fortifying your family, and giving us all so much to learn about and learn from. I'm not feeling 100%, but I'm feeling so much better after watching this conversation take place. And so on behalf of AARP, I couldn't be more proud to sponsor this virtual convening of all days on National Coming Out Day, a day of great importance, not just to the LGBTQ community, but to allies across the country. This morning when I woke up, I was, sort of thinking, what am I going to post today? What am I going to post on National Coming Out Day? When you are Senior Advisor and National LGBTQ Liaison for AARP, these are some of the things you wake up thinking about. And where I landed on this was a post that Brianna Vera had originally posted. I essentially reposted it. And it simply says, "Happy National Coming Out Day to folks who, ... are out in some places but not others, who can't come out due to fear for their safety, who are out with some of their identities but not others, who came out as one thing but now identify differently, who have never had to formally come out, who've had to come out more than once, who haven't found a label that fits yet, who had a traumatic coming out, who don't feel the need to come out, who are in the process of coming out, who are questioning coming out, and who are out and proud." And so I think that post really summarized what's not just in my heart, but what's in the heart of so many of us at AARP, at SAGE, and at Encore, who take this work seriously and who recommit ourselves today to doing more to advance LGBTQ rights, not just for young folks, and not just for older folks, but for everybody under the rainbow. You've heard it mentioned today that there are a number of resources that we've developed, and we encourage people to go to aarp.org/pride to download those resources. You heard Dr. Bates reference our AARP Prepare to Care Guide, our caregiving guide, customized for an LGBTQ audience. We did that in partnership with SAGE, and we're really proud of that work, and it's a terrific resource. And so please check that out. You also heard her reference AARP's Friendly Voice program. Yes, we're still in a pandemic, and there are still folks that are suffering from social isolation. And so that's one of many tools that I'm sure folks can tap into to make people feel a part of community in some way, shape, or form. And then last but not least, tonight we want to encourage folks to tune in to PBS. We're really proud to be a sponsor of the PBS national broadcast of the documentary Cured. That's tonight on PBS. I believe at 7 p.m. Eastern here in Washington, D.C., but check your local listing there for the Cured documentary. You definitely do not want to miss it. Last but not least, I just want to say thank you. Sometimes we don't have an opportunity to to hear from the voices that you've heard today. And this isn't just AARP, Encore, and SAGE showing up on National Coming Out Day. This is us showing up as we do throughout the year. And so stay tuned for more programming and more events and opportunities to engage. But Ms. Dion, I want to toss it back to you. And please share our appreciation to our AARP Florida State Office for lending you to the occasion.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for being a part. I echo all of the accolades that Dr. Nikordelai just shared, and all the words of appreciation for your time and your energy, and for those of you that participated in the collage experience, for just even doing that, right? Because you did something different, and that's okay. And that's what today is all about. It's all okay. So thank you so much. Dr. Nikordelai, I'm sending you love and light. I hope and pray that you are healthy soon. Take good care.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, everybody.
You too.
Cheers.